Hey guys, it's Shauna and Jess here
Hi, everyone.
with our monthly Webinars Over Wine program. First, rules of the road here. I hope everyone has their favorite cocktail or glass of wine in hand for the night. We have a lot of really excellent content coming up. I haven't even seen it myself, so I'm super excited. And a few other things, the chat bar on the right, feel free to direct any comments to us. If someone could chat in the chat bar that yes, you can hear us, just type in yes, that would be great. You can also submit questions. You can submit them publicly, or you can submit them. Hey guys, it's Shauna and Jess. Or you can submit them privately to us, and we'll get them, and we won't mention your name if you submit them privately, or you can submit them public. Either way, that'd be great. And then the recording will be available to you by tomorrow morning. If you've been on the calls before, you know that you'll get an email about it. So that will hit your inbox automatically, and you'll be able to re-listen to all of this. So with that being said, I am super, super excited because ever since I've known Jess, she's just had this really innate way of causing permanent drastic change in my life. We have this joke in the office that she ruins everything because so many things that I indulged in before, I can't even look at the same anymore, and I mean, seriously shifted the way that I look at certain things. And she's been able to bring new indulgences into my life, which is fantastic. That actually make me feel 10 times better. So she's just a wonderful person. The way she can phrase certain things, and she's such a wealth of knowledge to be able to transmit that information in such an easy way to understand. And truly what I really have loved about Jess and why she is a valuable member of our collective team is that she can take really complicated information and stuff that may seem super out there sometimes and really bring it back down to earth in such a common sense and very realistic way. And she's always been able to work with people in a way that works for them. And that's what this webinar is all about, is making your own food rules, because everybody is totally unique. And I could go on for hours singing Jess's praises, but I'm going to pass it over to her to give her her own introduction.
I just want to start off by saying thank you all so much for being here with me tonight. I so appreciate it. And my hope is that what I share with you tonight profoundly affects your life in the same ways that it did mine and is continuing to do to mine. Just a little bit about me first, for those of you who don't know. I got into food after being very sick for a long time. Only I didn't know that I was sick. I thought that I had just been dealt a bad hand. I struggled with terrible acne for almost 20 years. I had awful PMS. I was constantly exhausted. I went to doctor after doctor for help with my skin, never finding anything that helped. I just assumed that the PMS and exhaustion were a part of life. I was in a really tough spot, and my outlook on life was pretty bleak. And if there's anyone out there suffering from low self-esteem or low self-worth, I can really relate to what a dark place that can be. And I got to college, and image seemed to be everything then, and I started dieting and using all these low-fat, fat-free products I could get my hands on. I ate like absolute crap. I existed on a diet of microwave popcorn and calorie-free spray butter, iceberg lettuce, and fat-free ranch dressing, and honestly wondered why I didn't look like a supermodel. I was also a collegiate athlete at the time who was constantly working out. And thank God that working out like crazy while barely eating doesn't actually work, because otherwise I would have ceased to exist. My skin problems, which were really the thing that haunted me most, stayed with me well into adulthood. And finally, by way of trying absolutely everything else, I turned to natural medicine, acupuncture, herbs, Ayurveda, and a blend of everything in between. And it led me down a path that had more hope, but it really wasn't the whole story. There were still pieces of the puzzle missing. Finally, people were talking about diet, and I was taking their advice and implementing it, but it was never quite it. So finally, I enrolled in the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, more as a way to help heal myself than an actual career path. And I was finally able to figure some stuff out. And I'll be forever grateful for that program, because they preach that there is no one way to eat for everyone. We're all uniquely different, and while our bodies all operate in the same basic way, there are many subtle nuances that each of us possess that influence the way we're able to use food. So that's what I hope to impart upon you here today. You have all the information you need to figure out exactly what your body needs. When I was growing up, my favorite snack was Twizzlers dipped in Kool-Aid mix.
Oh my gosh.
So if anyone can change, if I can change, anyone can change. So the approach I want to take today is going to be sort of like the if you teach a man to fish type thing. And in the first part, we'll talk about how to change your eating habits by changing the way you eat. And then I'll impart some food stuff on you, too, to give you a good running head start. So if you really want to create lasting, sustainable changes in your health and whatever your health issues may be, whether you want to lose weight, gain clarity, energy, longevity, and I'll use weight loss as a reference a lot tonight because it's a question, it's an issue that people ask me about the most, but you can kind of sub in there whatever you want, energy, disease prevention, whatever it is that you're looking to get healthy for. We're going to use the same process, and it starts with this. We need to be able to tap into our body's wisdom and trust the innate guidance that it gives us. So if you want to take your power back and know what to eat and when to eat and be done with the overwhelming confusion, we must first figure out how to get to know ourselves and to trust ourselves. And the more you can really appreciate what you have, be grateful for your body, your life, your brilliance, the more you're going to want to take care of yourself. It'll be this innate drive that you won't be able to turn away from. Just for this 1 hour in time, I want you to put all negative thoughts about your body aside and entertain the idea that you have the perfect body for the life you're living. I'm so profoundly grateful for everything I went through, as hard as it was, and it was so hard, but it brought me here. And if I can do it, like I said, you can do it. And I have to be honest with you, the only part about it that was hard was how hard I was on myself, not believing that, honestly, I was really worth the crap because I hated the way I looked. Changing what I ate was easy. It was trial and error, yes. Pitfalls, yes. Patience required, absolutely. But once you get a taste of the possibilities, it falls into place and you couldn't imagine existing in any other way. The true and lasting radical self-care, which is really how I view my diet and the way I take care of myself, are life-changing. And also, and probably you all know this, even if you aren't aware of it, and this is really important, you can't hate yourself into change. There's no amount of disdain large enough to get you where you want to go, which is ultimately loving the body you're in. And that's why we're all here. Hate can't get you to love. So you have to love yourself enough to change. And that's why just for this half an hour, or for just this hour right now, let's start with maybe looking at how amazing our bodies are. And the way we eat and the way we treat our bodies in this country, the way food is produced and how and what we're actually calling food is completely broken. And we really need people to rise up and say no to that, to say, you know, there is a better way. We need people to walk through the darkness of it, see the light, stand up and say, absolutely not, I'm not doing that anymore. So if we want to make the choices that are best for our bodies, like I said, we need to be in our bodies. Most of us live in our heads while really only paying enough attention to our bodies to be disappointed with them from time to time, or to punish them, either via living sedentary lifestyles or with complete rigorous and grueling exercise. But how will we make the highest decisions for our bodies without actually being present with them? Our bodies have the innate wisdom built right into them that'll tell us exactly what we need to thrive. We only need to listen. Our bodies know our perfect weight. They know what foods deplete us or energize us. And it might be hard for some of you to believe right now. You might even feel at this point betrayed by your body, feel like you can't trust your own instincts around food. And I get that. I've totally been there. But if you try to get healthy before getting to know yourself and your body, it will be short-lived, it'll be very expensive, and it'll be very frustrating. So you'll be implementing all these changes without really knowing why you're doing it. You won't know how to look for signs that the changes are working. It'll be easy to slip back into old habits. But when you really get to know yourself, you want the best for yourself. You can pick up on the subtleties of what's working, and it builds momentum. And here's an important nuance of this journey, too, is healthy is something that I am. It's not something that I'm doing. It's not an outer experience. It's an inner journey. And if any of you listen to Shauna's productivity webinar, or if you know her, you know that she is productive. She's not doing productivity. It's not outside of her, it is her. And that's how we become successful with something. We become it. We embrace it as part of ourselves. And that's why I want to spend the first part of this webinar not really talking about the food. We all know somewhere deep down exactly what we should be eating. We know that sodas and diet sodas and cookies and whatever your food thing is isn't the way, but why are we still making those choices? And that's what I want us to get to the bottom of. So we start by recognizing the bodies that we're in, feeling them, taking up the space inside of them. And I'll get to the how in just a second, but first I want to introduce this idea to you. It's a fresh perspective that can take you out of your head and into your body.
And I totally want to chime in here because now that you bring that up, and I was thinking about this the other day, that could not be any more true. Like going through some of the massive fatigue that I went through a couple years ago, and how kind of scary that was before I really understood the role that food could play in my life. I had no concept of listening to my body. I mean, everything was much more of a heightened response of something being wrong.
Yes.
You know, not like thinking this is something I just put in my body.
Yes.
And so once I got through that, because I changed it through food, it is absolutely incredible what you pick up on. Like,
sure.
I just want people to know that it's such a cool thing to truly like feel and listen to that reaction your body has to something. And now being through that and trusting the whole food thing and nutrition, I know exactly why I'm feeling fatigued, or I know why I'm feeling spun up about something. Like, I can attribute it back to something I put in my body.
Yeah.
And it's this crazy like intuition that suddenly appeared just by changing food.
I mean, it's incredible when it starts to happen, and it's almost, you have that, I can't believe I've been living my life any other way moment, because we've just been taught to give our power away with everything, you know. Thank God for medicine and thank God for doctors, but we go in, we give them our health history, and they basically, they tell us what's wrong with us, you know, without really any sort of introspection on our part. I'm not sure if I made up that word. If I did or I didn't, I think you all, yeah, I think you get the point. So we've kind of been taught to take ourselves out of the equation. But really, like, who knows your body better than you do?
Yeah.
There's no one.
And I can say, too, and maybe you'll cover this later, the balance of, you know, we certainly are not sitting here saying that you need to negate traditional health.
Oh, I mean, good God, no.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely not.
Thank you for doctors and nurses.
Oh, absolutely.
But, and I think some people might worry, well, how are you going to know what to trust? And I'll say that, like, that comes along with this listening to your body. Like, you know, like, it's so weird, you guys. I'm telling you, like, when you listen to your body, like, you know if this is a serious thing and, like, it's a, what do I want to say, like a doctor issue, or you know if it's, like, this is a nutrition thing.
Yes. You
can kind of self-diagnose. It's super empowering.
Yeah. There are some days when you just need more greens.
Yeah.
And then there are some days where you're like, get your ass to the doctor. You have appendicitis.
Yeah.
But I mean, and we're talking about really the subtle nuances of really what feeds you and what depletes you, and really those are the signs and the signals that we're listening to there. And I'm going to be referencing this guy's name is Thich Nhat Hanh a lot throughout this call tonight. He's a Zen master. He speaks a lot about mindfulness and how mindfulness can change behavior, which is basically what the process tonight is going to take us through. He wrote a book that I actually bought months ago, and it just kind of collected dust on my bookshelf until very recently, and I thought it was quite coincidental that he kind of popped back into my world. But he wrote a book called How to Eat, and it's pretty radical in all the best ways possible. And I also wanted to read this and just further dive into the point of how special we are and how special our bodies are, and the orchestration of events that had to happen to bring us here. It's quite magical. And sometimes we get so micro-focused on the ways our bodies aren't working for us that we need to be reminded of the magic, to take a step back and see the big picture. So I'd like you to just close your eyes, take a deep breath, and really listen to this. Your body belongs to the earth. In modern life, people tend to think their bodies belong to them, that they can do anything they want to themselves. But your body is not only yours. Your body belongs to your ancestors, your parents, and future generations. The trees, the clouds, the soil, and every living thing brought about the presence of your body. We can eat with care, knowing we are caretakers of our bodies rather than the owners. And so with that broadened perspective, we can really start to get down to business here. And I just think that this part is so cool because it's not about the food. The food is secondary. It's about you, the eater, and what you do with the food. And as we go through this, you'll start to understand that, and then the food starts to change, and it starts to change effortlessly. And the choices you make start to shift, but it really starts here with slowing down and the magic of slowing down. And this is how I can say that everything will change and you don't have to change the food, but you'll want to. And that's the point of this here. When we get to the end, your perspective will have shifted, and you can eat whatever you want, but you won't want to. And that's the magic that happens when you really get the hang of this. So it starts with slowing down. And the way we eat is largely indicative of how we live our lives, which is typically at warp speed with no real effort to nourish ourselves. Do we feed ourselves? Yes. Nourish ourselves? Absolutely not. We fit food into our schedules, rarely real meals. We eat in the car, we eat at the office, in front of the TV, the newspaper, always grabbing and nibbling. But the slower you eat, the faster you metabolize. And that's a really cool concept to kind of wrap your mind around. The word metabolism itself is huge. It can refer to all of the chemical reactions in every cell of your body. But most people know it as it relates to weight loss, so it's fine if we stick with that here. But it also has to do with how well your bodies use food, break it down, absorb it, assimilate it, and use it for energy. And that is also metabolism. So the slower you eat, the faster you metabolize. Many of our body's mechanisms are pretty old school. So as amazing as we are, they haven't quite caught up with how quickly the world has moved forward and how quickly life moves, and the diminished quality of food that we're now eating. So our bodies, when we eat at the speed of light, on the go, in the car, standing up, while on the phone, all of the different ways that we eat that are just feeding and not nourishing, that activates a stress response. And stress is so ubiquitous that we really don't even pay attention to it anymore. It's gotten hip to be stressed. Everybody's doing it. But it does serious damage to your body and seriously thwarts your efforts to get healthy. During stress, no matter the stress, our bodies respond with a fight or flight response. And this is a series of chemical reactions that start in the brain and tell the body that there's an emergency. And our brains cannot tell the difference chemically between a dead lion and a lion, a traffic jam and a famine, a fight with a spouse, or a hurricane. What fight or flight does is it prepares the body for an emergency. So when we eat in fight or flight, digestion, assimilation, metabolism plummets. Because if there's an emergency, none of those things matter. If we're eating quickly, stressed out, we actually store food as body fat. And that's because during an emergency, fat storage is important. Your body doesn't know when it's going to get its next meal. And so it interprets this stress as an attack on your life. So storing fat at a later date becomes really, really important. And this is a mechanism from our caveman days, and we just haven't evolved out of it, but it's still really, really relevant. So at this point, we've got food that's just sitting in our stomachs. And you can eat the healthiest meal on the planet, but if you're stressed out, eating quickly, and not digesting, there's no point. It's going straight down the toilet, literally. The moment the stress response is activated, your heart rate goes up, blood pressure increases, breathing quickens, adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, which are all stress responders, get pumped into your body, and blood is actually rerouted away from your stomach and towards your head for thinking and your arms and legs for running. So what does this mean? Digestion completely shuts down. So for us, this kind of looks like in the morning, waking up, flying out of the house with a coffee and a muffin, or cramming down a bowl of cereal as we get the kids off to school, or you eat in the car, then you work all day, drink coffee, which also stimulates a stress response. When we finally eat lunch, it's grabbing a fast lunch, but you're not paying attention, you're thinking about work, kids, spouse, boss, etc., you're anxious. And in these moments, your body does not know that this isn't life or death. Food is just waiting, sitting in your stomach, waiting to be digested. And back to my Zen master, this is what he says, and again, I just love the perspective. Sometimes we eat, but we aren't thinking of our food. We're thinking of the past or future, or mulling over some worry, anxiety again and again. So stop thinking about your business, about the office, or about anything that isn't happening right now. Don't chew your worries, your fear, or your anger. If you chew your planning and your anxiety, it's difficult to feel grateful for each piece of food. Just chew your food.
So I never knew that. No matter, so you could be eating the healthiest thing, but if you're stressed, it's worthless.
Because when you're stressed out, like I said, your body, it basically prioritizes things. And the priority when you're stressed, and all stress is going to come out, is this fight or flight response. I'm in an actual emergency. It's like caveman thinking. The priority is not to digest food. The priority is going to be store food as fat for later because I don't know when my next meal is coming.
That is crazy.
It's crazy. And this is the part, this is why this is also interesting. This is the part of nutrition that just gets it just doesn't get a rap at all. We just don't talk about it. We just continue to talk.
Because I've never heard that.
Yeah, we just continue to force feed kale down our throats, whether we like it or not, thinking we're doing a good thing.
So if you're going to be stressed, you might as well eat chocolate because it doesn't matter anyways, right?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
I know that's what you're all thinking too.
And I will address that. So you're thinking, well, as long as I'm, yes, but I'll come full circle to that. Don't you?
Okay.
So basically, our brains are turning digestion on and off. And again, I stress the importance of digestion. I think the majority of us are so used to having GI disorders like bloating, gas, constipation, and so on, that we only see our digestion as problematic, when in fact there's a lot of wisdom there. That's your body talking to you. It's telling you either the food isn't right or your emotional state isn't right. And digestion is the key to all of it: weight loss, energy, longevity, and the key to digestion is how you're eating your food. And our bodies are so cool and so fascinating. I really want to take this a step further, and this really gets into solutions here as well. The link to knowing how we'll use our food, if we'll store it as fat or if it'll pass through us undigested, or if we'll be able to absorb it as energy. It's all about what our nervous system is doing when we're eating, and we can feel that in our body. So when we're in stress, if we're in fight or flight, we're operating in what's called the sympathetic nervous system. And when stress is off, we're in the parasympathetic nervous system, also known as the rest and relax nervous system. So you can kind of think as sympathetic as fight or flight, and parasympathetic as rest and relax. So there's sort of like this on-off switch for your stress. And if you've ever seen or read anything about how the French, especially the French women, can eat whatever they want and still stay thin, this is really the connection there. In France, in most of Europe, and basically anywhere but the US, people take a lot of time to enjoy their meals. They go home, they go to a cafe for lunch, they spend at least an hour eating, they often take a nap. It's totally relaxed. So the food is being used completely differently than you think it is, or the food is being used completely differently than it is here when we're standing up, eating at our desks, thinking about work, thinking about anything other than the food quickly. And a common complaint that I get is, I don't eat that much and I still can't lose weight. Or I feel like I eat well and I still feel like crap. I still don't have the energy. And this is really the key to that. So when we eat just a little under stress, and remember that stress can really come from our thinking just as it does from our actual physical situation. So check into what you're thinking about when you're eating. Are you worried about the fat in a food? That's stress. Are you worried about the calories? That's stress. So your thoughts could actually be keeping you unhealthy in this way. So our central nervous system is speaking to our guts, our GI tract, our digestive organs, and telling them to either start the process of using food by releasing juices and enzymes and secretions, or it's saying shut it down, store it as fat, halt digestion, let the food sit there, do not use it as energy. So the answer to this, though, is actually quite easy. I want to take a second to talk about the metabolic power of oxygen, which when I was a student we would refer to this as vitamin O. And this is when it really, really starts to get cool. Hopefully for you guys too, but I have a tendency to nerd out on this stuff. But just with our breath, we can move from the sympathetic nervous system to that fight or flight response to the parasympathetic nervous system to that rest and relaxation. So from stress to relaxation just with our breath. And it takes under a minute to move out of the stress response, just breathing through your nose, filling our lungs up 2/3 of the way with air by breathing deep into our bellies and then in through our lungs, and then exhaling fully through the mouth. So breathing deeply through the nose as opposed to the mouth gets deeper into the lungs and actually stimulates that the relaxation response. So you do this 10 times. It takes under a minute. Digestion turns on. Metabolism turns on. We digest. We absorb. And it doesn't need to make you a social leper either. No one even needs to know that you're breathing and relaxing. You can do it while observing conversation, making your plate, waiting for your food, making your kids' plates. Then nobody even needs to know that you are breathing. And again, just to keep going back to this guy, and if you guys want to buy this book, I highly, highly recommend that you do. It's just so full of wisdom. So he says about breathing, one mindful breath. It only takes 1 moment to take a mindful breath in and out before you eat. Bring the mind back to the body. Your body is always available for you. You can bring your attention out of your head and into your body. Before you focus on the food, focus on being present with your body. Breathing in, I am aware that my body is still there. Breathing out, I smile to my body. Eating with appreciation of our own bodies, we eat with more relaxation and joy. And that is the truth. So when we're eating in anxiety and stress, we're not breathing. And if we're not breathing, we're really limiting our metabolic capacity. So you calorie counters, if there's any of you out there, you can rejoice here. Because let's talk about what exactly is a calorie. And it's just the measurement of heat when something is burned. So everything has a calorie count. A computer has a caloric value, a book has a caloric value, your couch has a caloric value, your food has caloric value. So if we're looking to burn anything, but specifically to burn calories, we need oxygen. And the more oxygen, the better. So you breathe in more oxygen and you burn food more fully. And it's not just a chemical reaction thing, it's also that certain parts of our bodies require more oxygen than others, specifically the intestines and the small intestine and the stomach. And because the intestines are responsible for extracting nutrients from food, they need oxygen. So if you're not breathing, you're not using your food. And if at this point you're with me and you're like, this all sounds cool, but how does it help me make food choices? We are coming to that. Just hang with me here. So the natural extension of being in our bodies, of slowing down and breathing, is awareness. And one of my favorite teachers, Mark David, says, awareness is presence. It's our capacity to express what life is doing at this moment. So at this moment, we're eating. And this is important for so many reasons. The first is digestion starts in the mind. Cephalic phase digestive response, which you do not need to remember, teaches us that digestion starts with the pleasures of the mind. And research is actually showing that up to 40% of digestion is due to cephalic phase digestive response. So what exactly is it? Well, cephalic means of the head. So it's metabolism that starts in our heads with the pleasures of food. What we can taste, see, and smell. It's that part of the eating experience that starts digestion with the brain telling the body that there's food coming. Turn on digestion, release enzymes, release gastric juices, hydrochloric acid, get the pancreas and the liver turned on, all the organs that we need to digest. That all starts in the head. But for a culture that claims to love food so much, we pay very little attention to the food we're eating. We don't engage with our brains. So have you ever gone through your morning routine, gotten in the car with no memory of having brushed your teeth? Fortunately, we don't need a memory of the teeth brushing in order to have clean teeth, but we do need a memory of having eaten. So when we eat quickly and without thought or while thinking about something else, that even though our stomachs might be full, our brains have missed out on the experience entirely. So for one, we haven't triggered the cephalic phase digestion, so digestion and absorption will be minimal. Digestive forces aren't on full force. Nutrient absorption goes down. We haven't turned our brains on with the pleasures and aromas, flavors, and tastes of food. So basically, our brains say, I didn't eat. So when we eat too fast or fail to notice the food, our brain does not register the experience, and it will interpret that as hunger. Your belly may be full, but your brain is not on board. It's going to demand more food. Your brain must experience the food fully, taste, smell, pleasure to be full and to accurately dispatch your digestive forces. So if your brain is not full, it will continue to demand more food. And a really fun example of this is researchers were testing absorption, and they were just figuring out the different effects on things that would affect absorption of certain minerals. And so they gave a group of people a mineral-rich drink, and researchers were testing specifically the absorption of sodium and chloride. And so during a relaxed state, when the group drank the mineral drink, they absorbed it at 100%. And then they were exposed to dichotomous listening, which is basically having to listen to two conversations at one time. The group was unable to absorb anything. Absorption was at 0%. So the simple act of paying attention to two stimuli at once was enough to completely overpower digestion. And that's another big thing that drives us to eat when we're not necessarily hungry, is that we're nutrient deficient. We aren't able to break down and absorb properly, or we've eaten nutrient deficient foods. We have to remember the purpose of eating for the body is survival. We need certain nutrients to survive. So if we're not getting them through the food, we're always going to be wanting more. And then let's really take in these words here. And I'm using so much of him because it's just such a beautiful perspective on food and on eating. And sometimes all we need is a fresh perspective. And additionally, we'll touch on this when we talk about food. But if you're eating and it doesn't invoke this sort of holiness, this sort of awe, if it didn't take the collaboration of the earth and the sky, then you might be eating the wrong food. So he says, each spoonful contains the universe. Pay attention to each spoonful of food. As you bring it up to your mouth, use your mindfulness to be aware that this food is the gift of the whole universe. The earth and the sky have collaborated to bring this spoonful of food to you. While breathing in and out, you only need a second or two to recognize this. It takes only a few seconds to see that the food we're holding in our spoon is the gift of the whole cosmos. While we chew, we maintain that awareness. When we chew, we know that the whole universe is there in that bite of food.
And remind us the name of the book.
It's called How to Eat.
Awesome.
Keeping it simple. So basically, just when you eat, eat. Give yourself the gift of enjoying food. So that means no TV, no books, no distractions. Give yourself ample time. Check in 3 times to make sure that you're breathing. Joyful company can be great while you're eating, and that's a different chemical response entirely if you're eating in the company of friends. But just make sure you're noticing your food, enjoying your food, be awake at the plate. And the more you can do to really support this, the better. If you can put down a tablecloth and light candles, do that. But also start where you are and know where you are. So if you're used to reading or watching TV while you're eating, see if you can start by taking just a few minutes off and just eating, relaxing, breathing, noticing your food, and enjoying your food too. Because that is the next thing that we're going to get into here, because pleasure also has its metabolic advantages. And the Dalai Lama, if you asked him, he would tell you that the purpose of life is to be happy. And I really believe that. So why would food even exist if it was here to make us anything but happy? So if you've lived your life on low-fat diets or calorie restrictions or choking down healthy food or chicken breast or fat-free yogurt, this is for you. We're genetically designed to seek pleasure, so that if you're denying yourself that with food, you are fighting an uphill battle, and it's one that you're not likely to win. I've never, ever heard of someone winning their nutritional battle through deprivation or lack. We need that fulfillment. And here's just another really interesting study that I stumbled across in my studies. And this one was where researchers were using a group of Thai women and a group of Swedish women. And they prepared traditional Thai meal, and they prepared a traditional Swedish meal that contained exactly the same amount of iron. And researchers were measuring the absorption of iron and the different things that influence that absorption. So when the Thai women ate Thai food, iron absorption was high. And same with the Swedish women. When they ate their own food, iron absorption was also high. However, when the Thai women were given Swedish food and vice versa, with the Swedes eating Thai food, absorption plummeted and the group got almost no iron. So to test the theory that there was pleasure involved and not just the idea that the food was foreign, the researchers blended up each meal and gave the Thai woman a Thai food smoothie and the Swedish woman a Swedish food smoothie. So all the food on the plate, yeah, exactly. So the point of it was for it to be gross.
Yeah.
So the women weren't enjoying it, and they didn't enjoy it. It was disgusting, and again, the absorption of the iron was at almost zero. So that just really brings us to the point that the nutritional value of food is so much more than a collection of nutrients, and we need to really access the pleasure of it to fully access the value of it.
So can I ask a question here? So is that, so they blended it all up so it obviously tastes gross. What about for picky eaters like myself? If I look at something and it looks gross to me, is that triggering the same thing, you think? And I don't know if you can even answer that question, but like...
Well, I guess it really depends on how you're, like, if you decided to eat that thing, how you're feeling when you ate it. If your experience of it is gross, 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 like you can feel that tension in your body. That doesn't feel good. You can feel that stress response trigger.
Yeah.
But if your experience is, all right, that looks gross, but I know that it's good for me, and sometimes knowing that things are good for us is almost enough to relax us. It's almost that, you know, that fact alone will almost be enough. But if you're like, I'm going to kind of throw myself into this experience anyway and see where it takes me, and your attitude is sort of relaxed and one of adventure, two totally different experience, two totally different nutritional experiences.
That's so interesting. I hope you guys know, again, I talk to Jess practically every day, and she's taught me so much, and I swear to God, I haven't heard any of this before. Like, my mind is blown over here. Like, I'm sitting here tweeting like a fiend because I'm learning so much information. So I would love, like, your just, like, tweet as we keep going, or not tweet, but comment as we keep going, because I would love to hear your feedback, 'cause I'm, like, freaking out over here.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome, because I feel this, we talk so much about the food. Like, everyone's sick of hearing about the food, and the food's important, but let's, like, get down to you know, ourselves as the eaters, and who really, where we need to make those changes. So I do appreciate that feedback. And so, okay, so getting back into accessing the value of a meal through pleasure, there's actually some pretty hard science behind this as well. And so an example of what happens to our bodies that really supports the pleasure response, and you don't need to remember the chemicals or the names, just understand, you know, just kind of listen to it and take it in. But when we eat fat or protein, the body produces a chemical that's nicknamed CCK, because it's got some, like, ridiculously long name that I wasn't going to try and pronounce live on air. But CCK has a lot of functions. It stimulates the digestive organs to release juices and enzymes. Then it's released in the hypothalamus, where it shuts down the appetite. Then it stimulates the pleasure sensations in the cerebral cortex. So what this one chemical does is it helps us to metabolize food, tells us when we're full, and then makes us feel good about it. So you can see from that that pleasure is an innate part of the eating process that is built into us. And then conversely, we've got something called neuropeptide Y that increases in the absence of pleasure. It tells us to search for food. So it's naturally elevated in the morning when we need to break our fast and search for food. It's also elevated when blood sugar is low and we need food. So if you're on a low pleasure, low calorie, low fat diet, and you're really restricting on the pleasure, there's a chemical that is present that is pushing you to eat more. And additionally, pleasure elicits a relaxation response. And so now we are going full circle back to the beginning of relaxation. And let's sort of put it all together and figure out how to use this to our biological advantage. So this is the process. It's just really these 6 steps. And I highly recommend you implement these strategies at your own pace and to take your time. Some women make great progress with this by tacking it to the fridge, using it as a bookmark, keeping it somewhere that they see often. Some women, including myself, I use the breathing strategy all day long, using deep breaths into my belly and slowly out through my mouth to keep myself grounded all day long, and it naturally flows into my eating. And some women honestly get great results by spending an entire week on each step. So that means 1 week of really being in your body, being deeply aware of how you're feeling, 1 week of breathing and getting into the relaxation response, and then the following week adding minutes to each meal, eating more and more slowly, continuing to add time to each meal. The following week spent focusing on checking in at least 3 times a meal. Are you still breathing? Are you relaxed? How does your body feel? And the following week really paying attention to your food, bringing awareness to everything that passes through your lips. Taste it, smell it, enjoy it. So can you really start to see how this changes everything? And this might go back to what Shauna was talking about earlier. Well, if I'm stressed out, I might as well just eat the chocolate and be happy about it. But once you go through this process, you aren't the same eater anymore. So if you're a person who, say, eats 100 M&Ms, you won't need the last 95 of them because you're actually present for the first 5. You enjoyed them. You were present with them. Your brain knows you ate them. And you're also aware of how you feel afterwards. So maybe you're satisfied by 5 M&Ms, or maybe you feel lightheaded and you've got a sugar headache because you overdid it. You're able to connect the dots. So if you're someone who's been restricting and denying, or if you're one of my clients that says, I really don't feel like I eat that much, or I don't feel like my diet is that bad, you're able to fact check that through your body. So honestly, maybe you're not eating enough, or maybe you're not enjoying your food. You're worried too much about your weight and you're self-sabotaging. Maybe your diet isn't as nourishing as you thought it was. The foods you thought were healthy, like yogurt for breakfast, a bagel, a bowl of cereal, maybe now you're realizing that you need something more nourishing, like farm-fresh eggs and veggies, green juice, green smoothie, some slow-cooked oatmeal, fresh fruit, like good, sustainable food. The process works because you cannot fool your body. If you're present with your food choices, your body will tell you a definitive yes or a definitive no, and this is how you make your own food rules. Okay. And this is another one of my teachers, and I just think that this is brilliantly simple. Eat the best food ever and observe the results over time. Eat the worst food ever and observe the results over time. Compare and contrast. So bringing this level of awareness and mindfulness to your body after you've eaten, you're able to make the connection between what you've just eaten and how you feel. Light and energized, or full and heavy, comforted or sickened. Is digestion in full force, or are you feeling nauseous? Like I mentioned, digestive troubles are a great sign if you're as to whether you're choosing the right foods or if you're not eating them properly. So really pay attention to that, and then pay attention to how you're feeling mentally as well. I hear so many people talk about reward foods and I'm treating myself to this, but what's the point if you mentally berate yourself afterwards and it makes you feel like crap? And additionally, as you start to make the changes and you start to feel better, be with that as well and celebrate that. And be with that to the point that it sticks and you know that you're on the right path. Because honestly, y'all, you deserve to eat well. And regardless of the millions of things that we've heard to the contrary, of excuses that we've heard to the contrary, you deserve to eat well. And just to bring in yet another, hopefully, fresh perspective for you, your body is the vehicle that you have in this life. So whatever it is that you want to do, whatever you want to be good at, whoever you want to love, whatever you have to say, however you want to spend your time, you have this body to do it with. And nobody will ever care about it as much as you do. CEO of this body, and you deserve to eat well. And when I start talking about food and about eating better, the number one thing that comes up is cost. And yes, it might be more expensive, especially while you're getting the hang of it. But let me be clear here. This is healthcare. What you pay hundreds of dollars each month for is disease management. This is real healthcare. So why would you work as hard as you do and spend your money on something that's working against you, that's making you unhappy, and that's making you miserable in the long run? You deserve better. So now, I guess, really tapping into the food portion of this, and because I do think that everybody is uniquely different, and everybody on this call is going to need and thrive on a different diet than the other people on this call, that I'm giving you my best blanket advice for food. And the number one best blanket piece of food advice I can give you is to upgrade the quality of what you're buying. So if you need potato chips, get the best kind. If you need candy, get the best kind. If you need mac and cheese, best kind. Peanut butter and jelly and bread, get the best kind. And by best, I mean the one with the least ingredients, made with quality in mind, the most nutritious with the most nourishing ingredients. And this might mean that you have to change grocery stores. I highly recommend that you get to know your nearest Whole Foods, Earth Fare, or whatever your natural food store is. You don't need to buy everything there, but the quality of what you'll find will be significantly higher. Many stores like that have their own brands to help you keep the cost down. And also check out the organic, all-natural brands. I do a lot of my personal shopping on Amazon.com, on Vitacost.com, and those are two really good sources for non-perishable foods. And natural food stores also have bulk sections, so use them. Bulk nuts, seeds, beans, rice, granola, chia seeds, whatever superfoods you might be buying. Buying your staples in bulk will dramatically reduce the cost. And you can make a week's worth of meals, or at least the foundation of a week's worth of meals, with just a few dollars in the bulk aisle. Shopping at your local farmer's market will dramatically reduce the cost of produce, and you'll be inclined to try a variety of things. And please don't think that I am saying go out and buy a lot of expensive boutique foods and spend a ton of money on them. In fact, I really only recommend you buy what you understand and what you plan to use. I personally read a book on superfoods when I was just getting into the whole nutrition thing, and I easily spent a couple $100 on a couple bags of food, and I had no idea what to do with them once I got them home. They're a complete waste of money. So just a little bit of proceed with caution, and really, like, you don't need to dive in head first. But as you use the process that we talked about before, you'll really be able to get a handle on what your body wants and needs, and you'll be less apt to be wasting money on junk, because again, you deserve to eat well. And I have to say that I really don't feel like I spend a ton of money on food. I use farmers markets, I use the internet, the bulk sections of the store. Is it more expensive than Burger King? Yes, but it's absolutely worth every cent. Buying crappy food is like flushing money down the toilet while shooting yourself in the foot. It just doesn't make sense.
So is there an upgrade to Twizzlers dipped in Kool-Aid mix?
No, there's not. There really isn't. That's one that I haven't been able to maneuver my way around. Okay. My advice there is just don't eat Twizzlers dipped in Kool-Aid. Oh, God.
I love it.
And there's a few places where your upgrades will really have a lot of mileage. And the most expensive upgrade here is going to be purchasing higher quality meat. It's imperative that you stop buying factory farmed meat. It's a sad black mark on our culture, the way we raise meat and we treat animals for food. And the other thing you need to know about meat is you actually need a lot less of it than you think you do. So investing, and this is an investment in your health, in a few pieces of high quality meat will be far more advantageous than a bunch of mass-produced meat. I think we all got swept up in the Atkins fad years ago, and we really latched on to the idea that we need tons of protein, and protein is the only way to lose weight, and it's really simply not true. For those of you who like numbers out there and like to be on the dot and on the nose with things, you need 0.36 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So when you break that down, most women really only need between 40 and 70 grams a day of protein, and that adds up really quickly because veggies, grains, beans, dairy, they all have protein. And a chicken breast is anywhere between 30 and 60 grams of protein alone, depending on its size. So if you're eating more than that, meaning more than one piece of meat of that size a day, it's completely unnecessary. It's hard on your kidneys. It's really hard to break down because we don't store protein. You either need it or you don't. So knowing this, you can upgrade to high-quality, humanely raised animal products easily because you need so much less of them. And dairy is the same way. The animals and the environment pay a pretty hefty price for our need for cheap dairy. And while we're talking about dairy, it's one of those things that I highly, highly recommend people experiment with taking out of their diets. The mass of us are allergic to it in some way, shape, or form. But the dairy industry has done a really good job convincing us that we all need it for calcium purposes. But at the end of the day, we're the country that drinks the most milk in the country with the most osteoporosis, so I really don't think that milk is the missing link as far as getting calcium in. But But for me, dairy makes my skin break out. Like I'm 13, I'm 33, it doesn't matter. If I eat dairy, it just happens. And for a lot of people, it's allergies and mucus. It causes weight gain. So it's one of those things I really recommend you take a break from and see how you feel. And if you are one of those people that needs cheese in their life, like both Shauna and I are, you can upgrade that as well. Goat's milk, sheep's milk cheese, preferably raw, so that they have all of their digestive enzymes intact, making it much easier to digest. And then eggs on this list as well. You can buy a carton of the best eggs money can buy for $6, and that's still only 50 cents per egg, which in my book is a steal. And because I really need to mention, too, that the nutritional value of these foods skyrocket when they're raised properly. So meats will have higher omega fat ratios, which are the good fats we want. Eggs as well, more omega fats, more important minerals. So if you're buying a carton of eggs for 99 cents, you're not getting nutrition there. You might be eating the misery of a chicken, but you're getting very little nutrition. And really, what's the point of that? Again, like we talked about, like when you really get down to it, cheap food might fill your belly, but it doesn't feed us. And then just two more things so that you really have some hardcore information to walk away with. Grains, try some new ones. If you haven't jumped on the quinoa train yet, hop on. Try different styles of rice, brown rice, wild rice, the stuff that still has its nutrients in it. And use them in an effort to move away from the mass-produced wheat and pasta, because the way that we have started growing that, it's all changed so quickly. It causes a lot of allergies. It's hard to digest. It's one of those other things that can really cause people who have an allergy to it a lot of headache, weight gain, just stubborn stuff that's really hard to track. And lastly, rethink your sugar habit. Sugar is linked to all chronic disease. It's definitely linked to weight gain. So take a good hard look at the sugar you're consuming and see where you can reduce it, swap it out for sweet treats like fresh fruit or prunes or dates, and your sweeteners for either raw honey or stevia. But again, tap into your body and use the process to see what you really need. How much meat do you need? Do you react well to dairy? Are your current grains making you sluggish or giving you energy? Do your sweet snacks leave you with a headache, a sugar rush, craving more sugar? Use that information to your benefit.
And I will say, as someone that's totally on the on or off the dairy train, I guess. Off? I'm off the dairy train. Yeah. It has changed my life, you guys, and I used to obsess over milk. I mean, I craved it after I worked out. I craved it if I had a hangover. Like, how weird is that to crave? I mean, that's got to tell you something.
Yeah.
You're craving milk
yes.
after a workout or when you're hungover. You know,
that's
like
weird. Cravings are one of those things that people don't have a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of answers. We don't have a whole lot of answers. And one of the things that's sort of just accepted as true, even though no one's really sure how it happens, is you crave the things that you're allergic to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's, like, for me personally, I mean, dairy was a big one, and it caused a ton of issues. Migraines for me specifically, which, you know, with besides the very obvious triggers of like a lot of sugar or like caffeine withdrawal, or alcohol, of course, you know, like all my headaches completely went away, which have been a problem since childhood. Significant migraines. Yeah. And then grains too. I thrived because I don't cook. It's super easy to make pasta. And that I truly believe now, because of the way that I listen to my body, and when I do eat pasta now, is what got me into that problem. I mean, I probably was eating pasta for 4 or 5 days out of the week because it was super easy for me.
Sure.
And it spiraled into just a terrible place.
You know, and that's a great example of a habit that you should look into. If you're eating something that often, 4 or 5 times a week, take a good hard look at that and say, is that really serving me?
Yeah.
You know, let's say that you didn't have any sort of reaction to the pasta and you were just able to eat it and you felt fine, but you're eating something that really is fairly nutrient void.
Yeah.
4 to 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And let's say you replace that with something that had more nutrient density, that was actually feeding you something of value, the cumulative effects of something like that. So that's a really good point to really bring up those. All right, Gina. Gina is asking, can you all see this? Probably.
Yeah, that one's perfect.
said that we should take all wheat and grain out of our diets. True. You know, Gina, I've heard that before. There's actually a lot of people who are on that train right now. If you're familiar with the whole paleo push, that's one of the diets that says no grains, never, ever, ever. This is really one of those things that it's true person to person. I absolutely recommend that you flirt with taking wheat out of your diet, period, the end. Again, the way that we grow wheat and kind of just how morphed it's become compared to what it originally was, it's really, really, really difficult for us to digest. And basically all the nutrition has been stripped from it because we're trying to grow it so quickly. So basically all it does now is spike our blood sugar, make us feel crazy, and lead to weight gain. So wheat is absolutely one of those things that you can live without. I personally live without it. I personally am on a very low grain diet just because my body thrives a lot more on fats than it does on carbohydrates. That's not true for everybody though. But if you are going to keep grains in your diet, absolutely upgrade the grains that you're eating. So trying the quinoas, trying the mullets and the buckwheats, those are all different kinds of grains that are gluten-free, and kind of really seeing how you feel, because wheat and grains in general can be a very, very big problem for some people. So that's a great question. But again, I don't believe in blanket rules for everyone. I've never seen everything be true for everyone. So that's kind of my take on that.
Can you give us some other better grain alternatives for the people that, like myself, I thrive on crackers and or bread? What are some ways that we can upgrade crackers and bread?
So getting brand specific, one of my favorite cracker brands is called Mary's Gone Crackers. I know she has a fun line of stuff. They're all really cute names.
If you don't experience pleasure eating Mary's Gone Crackers, then something's wrong with you.
And I believe everything is raw and sprouted. Don't quote me on that. But she upgrades all of the ingredients that she's using. So I believe her crackers are mostly made of quinoa, maybe a little mullet, and maybe a little buckwheat, which again are like some really popular grains that are really gaining traction that are gluten-free right now. So that's Mary's Gone Crackers. And then my favorite bread, and again, it's all about upgrades, because I do still eat bread, is Ezekiel bread, and that is a sprouted grain bread, which basically means the grains that they were using to make that bread with, they soaked and they sprouted. And when a seed starts to sprout, it makes it a lot more digestible. It makes it a lot easier for our bodies to break down and to assimilate. And it gives us a deeper access to the nutrients that food once had. So that's Ezekiel bread. So like I said, there's really nothing that you can't say, that you have to say no to. It's all about upgrading and listening to your body and pushing through and figuring it out.
So let's just say, like, to get really realistic, like I'm at the Harris Teeter, which or Hy-Vee, or whatever it is in your part of the country. What is the best thing that I could get at, like, your run-of-the-mill, like, for bread? Like, is the whole grain, like, brand name, does that really that much better than white bread?
Honestly, no, it's not. When we're talking bread, that's one of those things that you really need to seek out.
So you're probably not going to find the best upgrade.
No, I mean, you might be able to upgrade your crackers at Harris Teeter. You'll probably be able to find an organic brand. You'll probably be able to find something that's gluten-free, which, if you're in a pinch and that's where you are and you need crackers, that's fine. Bread is one of those things, though, that it makes a lot of claims, like the whole wheat thing. But really, the quality really hasn't been upgraded. Like, it's really, unless you're seeking out really, really good bread like Ezekiel, like things you're going to find in the freezer section of your grocery stores that are still alive and living, it's basically just it's just a loaf of wheat that's been stripped of all of the minerals and the nutrients and everything that it once had.
So freezer section is where?
Freezer section. It's a good place to look for bread. And then we're also getting asked about coffee, body health, and weight gain. So ironically, I just wrote...
Maybe read. I'm not sure if everyone can see that one.
So the question is, what's the stance of 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day in relation to general body health and weight gain? I take mine with almond milk, a scant teaspoon of raw sugar each cup. Honestly, the majority of the science out there is saying that coffee really doesn't negatively affect health. It certainly doesn't affect weight gain. There's a lot of science out there saying that if you drink coffee and then you go to the gym, that could be something that's beneficial to you. It'll really get your metabolism going. The thing with coffee, like you mentioned, it's so much about what you're putting into it. Almond milk and a little bit of raw sugar is not going to be the end of the world. So I think that you're probably generally safe there. Coffee in general it's this whole other conversation. I actually just spent 10 days of my life researching coffee and trying to boil it down into one blog to answer just this general question: is coffee good or is coffee bad? And it really comes down to how are you using it? Like, are you abusing it? Is it taxing your adrenal glands? Are you using it instead of sleep? But if you've got some common sense around it, your coffee is just fine. What I do say in the blog is, if you really do want to make sure your coffee is working for you, is do make sure it's organic, because it's one of the most heavily sprayed food crops out there. Do make sure it's shade grown, and do make sure that it's fair trade, just because everybody deserves to get a fair shake in life. And we don't want a cheap coffee habit to really get in the way of that. But definitely stay tuned. I did write about that the coffee conversation is a big conversation. But 1 to 2 cups of coffee a day, generally good health. It's not going to make you gain weight. So you can, hopefully that'll give you a little bit of peace of mind, but definitely stay tuned.
And that'll be up on our blog in the next couple weeks, I believe.
Yeah, because and I think it'll probably be in a 3-part installment, because coffee is so much information, and it really comes down to how you use it. But I really appreciate the questions, everybody, too, and please feel free to keep asking. But I don't want to take up all of your time tonight. So moving on to the second strategy that I have here about how to make good food choices. And this one is really, I have to, from a moral place in my heart, make this point very clear, because it is often brushed under the rug. And it's uncomfortable to think about the fact that what we're doing and how adversely it affects others, but this is something that needs to see the light of day. Unfortunately, our way of eating and producing food can be very violent to other species, to our bodies, and to the earth. Our way of growing, distributing, and eating food can also be a part of creating a larger healing, and we get to choose. The planet suffers deeply because of the way many of us eat. Forests are raised to grow grain, to feed livestock. The way animals are raised pollutes our air and our water. Factory farming contributes more carbon dioxide than the combination of every car, truck, and vehicle on the road in the United States. We use more than 80% of usable antibiotics in the U.S. on livestock. The way we treat food animals on this planet, especially in this country, it shows ignorance and apathy and a complete lack of remorse for the forced suffering of other animals. And when you sit down to a meal and you're aware of that, that absolutely changes how you eat. So I do say this for 2 reasons. I say this so that now you can bring awareness to the foods that you're choosing and how that affects your body, and also the bigger picture as well, and how it's affecting the earth and the other animals and all of the other people that we're sharing this with, because it really is something that's important when we're talking about what we eat. So this is what he says about that, and it's about choosing what to eat. With each meal, we make the choices that help or harm the planet. So what shall I eat today is a very deep question. You might want to ask yourself that question every morning. You may find that as you practice mindful eating and begin to look deeply at what you eat and drink, your desire for certain foods may change. Your happiness and that of the earth are intertwined. And that is just so true. And I don't know if it's because I grew up with hippie parents or what, but that just speaks to me. So the third thing in this short little list to really help kickstart a new way of eating for you is think in terms of nutrient density. And that's just like basically what has got the most bang for its buck? And the first portion of that is eating more plants. And a plant-based diet just means that your meals revolve around plants. You can still eat meat if your body tells you to. Plants are really where it's at, though. They have all the things that we need to live, we need to thrive. They cleanse our minds, they cleanse our blood, they fight cancer, diabetes, prevent disease, they clear our skin, they make us lean and mean. So really bulk up on them. And if your eating can revolve around how many plants you can get in a day, that is a serious win. You'll also be getting the array of necessary vitamins and minerals so that craving and overeating will be a thing of the past. So a green juice, green smoothie in the morning, or a big green salad for lunch or dinner is honestly one of the best things that you can do for yourself, and take care of yourself in that way by eating enough fruits and vegetables. All right, and this is kind of a mouthful, and I'm sorry, but it does need to be said. And this is a broad, sweeping statement, but ditch the industrialized food system. Let's get honest about where most of our food comes from. It's just not real food. There are ingredients that are allowed in our food here in the United States that are not allowed overseas, and that is not an uncommon practice. Subway just removed yoga mat from its bread, and that's an ingredient that was never in any of its bread overseas. So food companies are taking advantage of the fact that no one cares, no one's paying attention, and they are slipping all kinds of crap into our food that has no business being there. So if you were in London and you were buying M&M, all of the colors would be different. And that's because the colors that they use in the US would have to come with a warning label overseas, and M&M's is not willing to put that on their packaging and have people potentially not buy it. If you bought a box of Jell-O overseas, it would come in with a warning label that would say the color additives cause hyperactivity in children. And we don't find that here. So if you think that, oh, the FDA and the USDA have said that this is food, and so it's okay for me to eat, it isn't. And what we're really talking about here on this call is really nourishing ourselves, really feeding ourselves. You're here because you want to heal your relationship with food. You want to use food to heal your body. And Chick-fil-A, it's not going to heal your body. No offense to them. And Special K would actually like to keep you overweight so you can keep feeling terrible enough about yourself to buy their cereal. So right here, we're talking about the real healing powers of food, not just the food that's going to make you feel good enough. So use this process again and see what your body really wants. And if you're not quite ready to say goodbye to certain things, really tap into them. Eat them with mindfulness and awareness, and see what space they really occupy in your life afterwards. And then just one more little tip I have found to be immensely helpful when I'm changing my food stuff is crowd out. And basically what that means is let your focus be on the good stuff. Start eating more greens, more fruits, more plants, and become so satisfied with them that you're not even thinking about the other stuff. And this is a far better strategy than focusing on all the foods you can't eat or no longer want to eat. So this means focusing on more greens instead of focusing on not eating cookies, or thinking about how to get more fruit in instead of worrying about giving up potato chips. This simple shift will save you a lot of sanity. And again, if you still want cookies and chips or whatever your thing is, be present with them. Make sure it's really what you want, because I guarantee it's probably not. And then lastly, and this is kind of a big one, getting down to how you really want to feel, and I also call this the why behind the why. And it's sitting down and having a nice, long, and honest conversation with yourself about how you want to feel. So deep down inside, why do you want to change the way you eat? I guarantee it's probably not because you want to wear certain clothes or look a certain way. I'm looking for the why behind the why, the deeper why. How do you want to feel alive, vibrant, confident? And when faced with food choices, it's more powerful to tap into that why, the real why, because it's much more visceral and much more real. And it's also the one that's closest to you. So while it might take some time to drop a few pounds, you can eat to feel light and vibrant right now. And those are the signposts that keep us on track, that help us stay connected to really how we want to feel and the food choices that we make. So really, what's the moral of the story here? There's a lot of information out there telling you to eat this, not to eat that, low fat, low calorie, high protein. Even like y'all were talking about grain or no grain, wheat or no wheat, coffee or no coffee. Those diets and those doctors and those people, they're, I'm sure, very brilliant, and they have a lot of great information to share, but don't take it as, just do your own research, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Nobody knows you like you know you. Those doctors, Dr. Oz doesn't know your body like you know your body, and while he is a brilliant man, only you know you. And I guess going back to the coffee question too, if you feel great after you drank 2 cups of coffee, then drink 2 cups of coffee. I personally feel like an insane person, so I really had to reel back my coffee. So someone said this to me recently, and I really, really, really enjoyed it. And they said, people are changing every single day. You're not so special that you can't do it too. And that is just the truth. You have all of the information you need to make your own food rules and to tap into your own wisdom. So I'd love to keep chatting if you all have any more questions. This is a great way to reach me in all of the different ways that you can reach me. Twitter, Instagram, you can email me. I love this conversation. I always want to talk, so please, if something like this comes up throughout the day, please feel free to reach out to me. Don't just listen to this today and then go back to your old ways. Like, it's time to make a change. And I do one-on-one coaching if you really want to dive deep into this stuff, because honestly, this was just the tip of the iceberg. It's what I could cram into about an hour, but there's so much more if you want to have your own experience with it, and have that non-judgmental guidance to create your own path. And please contact me and we can create something together that's unique to you, that gets you to where you want to go. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Like, again, I'll say it over and over, I have learned so much, and just tonight I've learned so much more, and I talk to her on a daily basis. So I'm telling you guys, just from personal experience, if you really enjoyed tonight, the crash consults will be the best $60 you will ever spend to get personalized feedback on your body and what you're doing. As you can tell, Jess is incredibly thoughtful and knowledgeable about what she tells you, and one thing is for sure, that if she doesn't know, she's not going to feed you a spoonful of BS. Like,
I will not.
She will say, I don't know, and she will go figure it out. So rarely does she not know, and the times that she hasn't, she has come back to me with an answer, and I'm not even paying her to do that. She gives it to me for free. So the nutrition coaching, if you really want to take it to the next step, she has 3 packages on there, one focused on weight loss, one focused on fatigue and gaining more energy in your life, and the other focused on skincare, improving that through nutrition alone. Awesome packages, and that's all personalized too and totally virtual, so we can do this with anyone, anywhere. And we'll hang out for a bit. If anyone wants to post any questions in the chat, we'll answer those, but I appreciate everyone for being on the call tonight. I know personally, selfishly, I super enjoyed it. I really hope that you all did too. I'm pretty confident you did. Next month, Wednesday, October 22nd, is the next webinar over wine program, and this is the first time we're actually featuring a host outside of our collective. We'll have Stephanie Wonderland on the call, and she is an online genius in terms of personal branding and what she's done as a rock star female powerhouse, and then mom as well of 2 young ones. And so we're going to be talking about just kind of like living your life online and kind of navigating the online atmosphere in personal and professional senses, and more info will come out about that later.
Awesome.
But yeah, we'll hang out for a bit, and again, Jess, that was awesome. Any parting words for us?
I just so appreciate you all being here, because I know that this can be tricky business, and I know how frustrating it can be, and I know how overwhelming it can be. So when I say please reach out to me with any kind of question you might have, I really, really do mean that, just because I've been there before. I've battled that overwhelm, and I just totally nerd out on this stuff. I absolutely love it. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, hope that I gave you guys some fresh information to start tackling this stuff in a new way. So again, thank you so much for being here.
Tweet us, reach out to us, email us, book a session. Seriously, life-changing. And we will talk to you all later.